What do you regret finding out? My father never wanted me, or children at all, and actually told my mother that if she had me, he'd spend his life making both of us miserable. She was convinced that once he saw me, he'd change his mind. She was very, very wrong. After my dad died, my mom before she died said he always felt my struggles were because of him accidentally dropping me down the stairs as a baby. I struggled in school with math and physically I have a form of muscular dystrophy, but we didn't know that at the time, so he believed my physical issues were his fault. It apparently ate him up and helped fuel parts of his depression. I didn't need to know that. Edit. Jeepers, didn't expect this reaction. Thank you everyone for your kind words. My parents did their best and I hold no ill will towards them. My mother didn't tell me to hurt me or my dad's memory. She just wanted to share. I have Becker's muscular dystrophy. A cousin of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Mine MD is like the diet right of MD. I get spasms and fall randomly. I was diagnosed after he died, so he never found out. The only anger I live with is, 1. My dad died before sharing his meatloaf recipe. 2. My mom died before telling me her biscuits and gravy recipe. They just up and died before telling me, jerks. That my mom knew my stepfather was abusing me and did nothing. Edit. I wish I could respond to everyone, but to be honest I don't know that I have the emotional strength. This was a random comment that I did not expect to get much attention. Thank you to those who have given support and kind comments. Duck you to those who have said I should have done something more as a 10-year-old kid. And I am so sorry to those who have had to deal with the same thing. I wish I could fix it for everyone. I know that today has been painful reading everyone's comments and stories for me. I am so sorry. I'm going to take a nap and turn off my notifications. I always blamed my best friend's erratic behavior on mental health issues until one day I found her passed out on my toilet and realized that her behavior always got erratic after bathroom visits. Unfortunately, she may have mental health issues, but an addiction to certain drugs was the reason for most of her behavior. When I was around 10 years old, I was sitting on the couch and my older sister came towards me with a knife and stabbed a hole in the cushion about a foot from my leg. She pulled the knife out and immediately told me not to tell Dad. I was young and naive and my sister had kind of twisted sense of humor, so I really didn't know what to think. It definitely did some damage now that I look back on it. Years later my sister announced that she had planned to attack me with a knife, but chickened out at the last moment. At this point I had all but moved on from the incident, but this brought it all back and then some. My ex said not to worry about a guy when we were together and she ended up marrying him after 5 years. My dad mentioning how tight my mother is. Thanks Dad. Finding out my ex had slept with my uncle and 3 of my friends. That my ex sabotaged a condom to try and stop me from joining the military. How good it feels to be high on opiates. Edit. After 10 years of addiction I have over 3 years clean now. My brother's girlfriend's NSFW Reddit account. It's supposed to be a couple's account. So you might guess the horrors I saw in there. Realizing I'm not all that okay with being a loner. It was easier when I didn't care that I had very few friends. Frown. That my dad abused my sister. This comment is kind of maybe blowing up, so I wanted to clarify something. I wasn't the one that found out. My sister confronted him, one of the bravest things I know of, and legal proceedings began. One night my mom got all of us together and told us that I'm not very smart. I'm not dumb or dim, but I've really had to come to terms with the fact that not only am I not the smartest man in the room, I'm probably damn near the stupidest. Learning from my sister that my father told her that my mom's mom was not paralyzed from the waist down because she fell off a fence, it is that she was beaten so badly by the man she was seeing at the time. What my sister and her boyfriend were doing in the bubble bath. What tinnitus is. Now I can't stop hearing it frown. When I was about 14, my mom took me to a tattoo shop to get her nipples pierced. While the procedure was happening, she turned to me and said, "Your dad bites harder than that." I could have lived without that info. The details of my parents' divorce. Thanks, Mom. I didn't meet my dad until I was 15. It was in secret since my mother wanted nothing to do with him. Within the first 3 sentences exchanged, he felt the need to tell me that I was conceived on a beach in July during the last time they had sex. I was the product of going away duck in a relationship doomed before my conception. He followed it up with, "We were good at 2 things, me and your mom. Fightin' and fuckin'. Unfortunately we were fighting more than we were fucking, so it stopped being worth it." 10 years later, and this is still how I get my family history. How many cockroaches there are in Australia? The one that climbed my foot as I sat in the evening gaming freaked me out. That my dad is not my biological dad. My mother died in a car accident when I was 3. I found out from a newspaper article years later that it was her fault. She wasn't paying attention and crossed the yellow line and ended both her life and that of the person in the other car. That I was the asshole in my relationships. Turns out I've become the person I was afraid of becoming my entire life, my dad. A jealous dude with anger management issues who never sees his own faults. To be fair though, I've come a long way since my best friend straight up told me what I've become and that if I stayed that way she was going to stop being friends with me. I guess I don't regret finding out because it helped me get my shit together. However, the fact that you were the asshole and you were the reason some of your friends cut ties with you is a pretty hard pill to swallow. Especially knowing that you'll never get to make it up to some of them because it's been years. Why should they care at this point? What the Mr. Hands video is. You could wake up mid-surgery. Or, amnesia awareness, where you feel all the pain from a surgery but you're asleep, and a surgery goes on for hours. I regret finding out that a priest I used to admire was a pedophile and has since been defrocked. That my mother knew she had cancer a year before she told anyone, or rather, a year before she was diagnosed, after I literally forced her to see a doctor for her then extremely distended stomach. I was under the impression that we told each other absolutely everything because up until that point, we did. I found out the truth a month after she died when I requested all of her cancer-related paperwork from her oncologist. Looking on my ex-GF's phone when we were on a trip to Ithaca, NY. I would take any physical pain I've had so far over that I felt when I saw the things on there. Totally gut-wrenching. I wanted to marry her. Edit. I tried to forgive her and worked very hard to do so. At the end of the year I was ready to start our new life and put it all behind. Got a job in Colorado. We had talked about going there and it was my dream since childhood. The day after I signed a lease for a nice apartment she ghosted me. I tried hopelessly to reach her, calling dozens of times a day. She dumped me over an Instagram message after about a month of this. After trying so hard for her and finally feeling better, she ended it that way and left me completely alone 1,700 miles from anyone I knew. Thought pretty hard about offing myself a few times. Found out my girlfriend told my parents I was extremely suicidal and they responded, "So? What do you want us to do about that?" And they never brought it up again. Few months after they kicked me out for textbook depression, I found out my mom cashed out my Upland program that froze college tuition prices for me. Cost of 1991 pricing. My grandmother set up and put money in. She used the $25,000 in it to pay off IRS from problems she incurred due to drug addiction. That my ex-wife ducked my best friend just after we separated and while I was drowned in depression.